Down back one, picking him apart. Jimmy lost a lot of life. He's against the wall.
Oh, he's
getting
mauling
picked
him
apart.
again.
Low soccer kick. Block on the rage. This is huge. The Rage, Joey Fury moving on to the winner's side grand finals.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Born Free here, and I am at Red Bull Conquest in Washington DC with my man Joey Fury. How the hell are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. It's been a really cool weekend. We've got this awesome venue, Red Bull. They kind of introduce unique tournament formats, so everyone here is getting like a totally different experience from any other tournament they go to, like this team format. So I'm having a really good time.
Yeah, so it's like it's actually Sunday now. It's not long before this whole thing wraps up. Joey is like a little tired, I think, and you know, yesterday was a big day. You came in second. You put Jimmy into losers. It went down to the last round, so you know, it's sort of like good and bad, I think. I don't know, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, it's kind of it's like bittersweet because of course I wanted to win. I wanted to take it all. At the same time, you know, I know how good Jimmy is. I've had a lot of tournament encounters with him in the past, and I'd never beaten him in a set. So sending him to losers, that was kind of like a personal victory, and I knew he was going to be coming back, so I was like prepping myself, like this is going to be a war. It's going to be so hard for you to take this tournament, but you can do it. And playing Jimmy, he kind of like pushes you to be perfect, so it's a really cool experience to be pushed to your limits like that. So I was constantly being pushed to play my best and keeping up with him, and then ultimately he bested me. But it feels good to play that well. I just need to learn how to sustain it. And yeah, I wanted to win, but yeah, good overall performance for me, I think.
Right. I mean, best way. I think that's a good way of looking at it. I'm sure. Like, I'm glad that a day has passed for you to like think about it, and also it's progress, right? You just told me that's the first set you've taken from him, and you put him into losers, so that's awesome. But we're going to talk also about Tekken World Tour because that's coming up, and you're qualified for that. So a lot of exciting things coming up. I kind of wanted to start at the beginning because I heard that you started playing Tekken very, very early, like at the age of 10 or 11, when you're actually out there winning, beating people, and I don't know what you were doing at that age. Can you tell me a little bit of the story around that and how that happened? Like,
yeah. Well, so the first tournament I ever entered was 2004. I was 12 years old, and that was Tekken 5. But my Tekken story, I guess, goes back a little earlier than that. My brother got me into Tekken with Tekken 3. He's about 4 years older than me, so I would just play him on the PlayStation 1 on the console. Brian Fury was my favorite character. And I would just try to learn the moves. You know, I was a young kid, not any good at the game, but I had like a sibling rivalry with my brother, and we were always like going back and forth trying to beat each other. And that's how I started with Tekken. I got into the arcade scene when I was like 12, started going to tournaments, and everyone's like, "Who is this kid?" You know, the average age of the gamer then, you know, the kids are probably like between 17 and like mid-20s. So I stood out, and I was probably like the best in my local scene, Buffalo, by the time I was about 14. So it's been just a very long progression of our scene in Buffalo to make me the player that I am now, and that's what happens when you start young. You know, you meet a lot of good players, you get mentors, you soak up information fast when you're a kid. So yeah, that's kind of how the story goes.
Yeah, a lot of that come from your brother. I mean, you said your brother started it. Did you have a big sibling rivalry? Was he somebody who was very supportive? Like, what was the whole story with you and your brother?
Oh, definitely. It was massive sibling rivalry. You know, we would play Tekken 3, Tag 1, Tekken 4, Tekken 5, just tons of games against each other. And I got better than him as I started to become like a teenager, and I would win a lot, and then he would, you know, he'd beat me up physically, you know, because he didn't want to lose to me. But it just kept things so competitive between us. I attribute a lot of my Tekken growth to just having a training partner like that just in my house so we could play a lot.
Yeah, I mean, sibling rivalry has been. I find it fascinating because sibling rivalry has been coming up a lot with players I've been talking to recently, and that is, that's where I had sibling rivalry. Sibling rivalry, I think, starts a lot of people off on that competitive mindset. Particularly if you're the younger one.
Exactly.
It sucks. Until you start winning, and then you get beaten up in real life. So, all right, so. There was that sibling rivalry, then you started doing well in Buffalo, getting notoriety, and I guess much later on, I hear that you were the first US player to beat Saint and JDCR at final round. Tell me that story. How did that feel?
I think, final round 2017, that was a pivotal moment in me getting recognition as a player because, like we've been saying, I was playing Tekken for so long, but such a young kid, didn't really travel. I was only really known locally, and in like Tekken 6 and Tag 2, I was going to high school and college and very focused on school. Tekken 7, that was like right about when I finished college and started traveling, and I showed up at final round, and everyone from home knew who I was, but I showed up there and people were like, who's this Joey Fury guy? And I ran into Saint in winner's bracket, and I played like just some of the best Tekken I had played in my life up to that point, and just took him down. Like, whoa, did he beat Saint? And then next day, my boy Mac was like, you have so much momentum right now. You just beat like a top Korean. You don't even have this game on console. Tekken 7 wasn't even out yet.
Oh my god.
And they had been playing in the arcades, and like, you got so much momentum. Like, they got to be nervous of you. Like, you can beat JDCR. You can do it. And I beat him. I moved on to winners finals, and then ironically I lost to another American. I beat the two top Koreans, but then Speed Kicks beat me. But people, they were shocked because of the fact that Americans didn't have any access to the game, and we were taking sets off of these guys, and there's a lot of people that were like, so inspiring, like that. We can compete. We can do this. Like, there's hope for American Tekken to be able to do well, and I think from there, that's been shown. Like, a lot of Americans have had success against top Koreans, maybe not dominating, but taking sets off of them, and that's a big deal. So I got a lot of recognition for those wins.
Yeah, I've also heard that it's interesting that you say you didn't have access to the game. I'm assuming you were playing Jack, right?
Yeah, I was using Jack in that tournament, and all of my practice was in Tekken Tag 2.
Tekken Tag 2.
To prepare for Tekken 7 tournaments, yeah.
Right, because one of the things that people have said to me from Tekken and from Guilty Gear, because, my biggest strength is in Street Fighter in regards to knowledge, and the game engine on Street Fighter changes a lot, but with Tekken and Guilty Gear, all I'm ever told is, listen, if you could play Jack in this game, you can play Jack in this game. So I guess that translated through. I'm sure there were some things that were different, but it seems like it wasn't completely foreign.
So something that a lot of people emphasize about Tekken, they always call it a legacy game. And that's because, starting from the original Tekken, they keep like all of the original moves, and then they just keep incrementing and adding more and more until, the average move list in Tekken probably has over 100 moves. So there's tons of carryover from game to game. Usually they just add a few new moves to each character. They tweak the frame data a little bit. So if you've been playing a long time, you have a huge advantage. And I would say Tekken 7 actually has introduced the biggest changes to mechanics. You're saying like Street Fighter, they overhaul the mechanics quite a bit every single game. But Tekken 7, they introduced these power crushes. You can absorb hits, rage arts, rage drives. There's a lot of new stuff to learn, but at the end of the day, the legacy skill still carries over. So especially a character like Jack, playing Jack 6 to Jack 7, you're going to be okay if you just play solid Tekken.
Yeah, actually, talking about that, a question I was going to ask you, I may as well ask you now, since we're talking about mechanics, is so the Korean players in particular, some of the OG Korean players hate the crossover characters, right? Because the crossover characters bring in brand new mechanics.
Right. Yeah.
I'm a marketing guy, so like from my perspective, I'm like, from a spectator perspective, I'm like, this shit is working really well. Like when I saw Akuma, I was playing that game, right? So, but tell me, what do you think? How do you feel personally about the crossover characters?
Right. So I think, like you said, from a spectator perspective, it's very good to have variety like that in the game, and something that fans of other franchises, they see and they recognize mechanics. I think from a game design perspective, it's just very interesting, like a developer trying to take mechanics from other games and implement them in a new environment. That's all very fascinating to me. And you do get a lot of players that will complain, they get EXDP'd by Akuma, or caught in some crazy combo by Geese Howard, and we get frustrated when that's not Tekken, like I don't like that. But ultimately, I think what these games are about are expanding your mind as much as possible to understand this whole world that is like virtual fighting, and introducing new mechanics and pushing your brain to understand them. I think that's a good thing that will make you a stronger player, and is always going to make the game more interesting. So the crossover characters, I think, are very cool. I mean, there are things that are frustrating when you play them, but I'm all for it. I think it's good for the game.
Cool. All right, so I hear you do tutorial videos. Is that right? Like, what's the deal with that? Because Brian F, because on the surface people can say, he's doing something great for the community, which you are. Brian F always told me that he made tutorial videos literally for himself because he had to go through that process to understand something. What's your deal with tutorial videos? Like, what's the end game?
So I've made a few of them, not nearly as many as I would have liked. I wanted to cover the whole cast, but as I was making these, they're time consuming and life got a little bit crazy. I sort of fell off. I want to come back to them, but I think majority of motivation for making them is selfish. You do it for yourself. There's a little bit of balance. Like, I'll throw some things in there like, I already know this is just for the viewer, but for the most part, I'm just exploring as much as I can about the character for me, and then I record it and I make it available, and it's like a mutual benefit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just think it's an interesting point when Brian told me that, because I was like, because it works for both. Like, it's like these interviews. These are great for me, they're great for you, and they're great for them, right? So it's like, if it works for everybody, let's do it. And the same thing, I feel like myself, like as I'm thinking myself, maybe I should start making tutorial videos based on when I'm learning, because like going through that process is a good way of learning. You're also streaming, right? What's the point of your stream? What's the vibe of your stream? I'm interested in this because I just started streaming myself, and a lot of people out there, try to stream and sometimes get a little frustrated with streaming. So how do you treat your stream? I hadn't thought out like a game plan for my stream. I haven't been doing it that long, but I do really enjoy it and I find it fun. And I think initially I kind of looked to streamers that I really liked, and the big Tekken streamer that I looked to was Anakin. And his stream, it's always kind of, he loves to play ranked, and he plays a lot of different characters, and he kind of plays like an asshole online, and he makes fun of the people he's playing against. And I didn't set out like I wanted to be like that, but I think as I was originally streaming, I subconsciously adopted that style a little bit. Like, I would just play ranked and be like, what's this guy doing? Like, oh, why would you do that? Critique them. I think I've been trying to get away from that a little bit, because that's him, that works for him. I don't really think that's me so much. I was just kind of unintentionally doing that. The whole point of the stream is I just want to have viewers get to know me and what I'm interested in, even just outside of Tekken, and just talk with them and make friends.
and show them me learning the game too. I don't want it to just be this like, oh, come into my stream because I'm the master and you should watch me. Like, it's a learning process that I can share with other people, just like the tutorials. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Just it's a me stream.
Me stream. No, I actually know what you mean. Like, it's funny because you start to become an entertainer. You know, like, so you start to exaggerate your responses to people and like, you know, and then you end up being like hugely disrespectful, forgetting that there's somebody on the other end probably even tuning into your stream.
Right, like it's weird how you catch yourself kind of like slipping into a persona, and then other people think that's like really you. I've had like some regrets. You know, I play someone online and I like critique their gameplay, like this guy, like what's he doing? You know, like really like kind of like putting them down, and that's not like who I want to be, but you kind of like become that person every once in a while in stream. So I try to scale that back a little bit, but it's a push and pull because you get a lot of viewers that really like that kind of thing.
Yeah, streaming's entertainment. At the end of the day, streaming's entertainment, so it is what it is. But I've had it once where I had somebody come into my chat and just like, you know, lose his shit because I forget that sometimes you're playing them and they come see your stream. Like, I totally forget that, and so like, but I just started too. So anyway, talking of Anakin, you brought up Anakin. Anakin yesterday said to me, you know, in Tekken you have to have a plan going in, and he called you out for saying that. He called you out specifically and said Joey Fury is really good at having a game plan. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Does that define you differently from other players?
I mean, I would imagine, you know, it's important for a lot of people to have a game plan going in. I think maybe it does define me a little bit. I take it very seriously, having a game plan for every match. And I've developed kind of my own personal style and how to do it. I think a lot of people, they realize when they go through the process of making game plans, maybe early on they overdo it. They have too many bullet points in their note sheet, like gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this, gotta do this.
Really?
And I've learned the value, I think, over the years of simplification. And you can start that way. You write down like all of these things that you want to execute, and then you kind of just try to condense it as much as possible. You make an abridged version, and at the end you should boil it down. It should just be like, for me, 3 notes. Like maybe the range you're going to play at, the main moves that you want to hit them with, and a few moves that you absolutely do not want to get hit by. And you know, just like 3 key points, and just go in and let the subconscious take care of it. Sometimes it's on my phone, sometimes it's all just in my head, but I always have one. Yeah.
But like, when do you so if it's in your head, do you, when you're going into a match, do you just mentally pause and try to remind yourself of things?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I always go back to stage select, let the random run, and then just think like, what do I need to do in the next match? Reinforce the game plan or modify it if need be.
Okay. Now, you just said that your favorite character was originally, what was it?
Oh yeah, Brian. I originally played Brian Fury, and that's why I'm Joey Fury.
Right. That's what I wanted to ask. So Joey Fury. Joey is your real name?
Yeah, Joseph.
Yeah. Okay. So Joey and then the Fury. All right.
Yeah.
So Brian Fury is okay. Got it. So you're not going to change your name to Joey Jack?
Joey 7. I don't know. Yeah, so yeah, some people they don't like that I rep Brian Fury's name but play Jack. They consider it some sort of affront to the sacredness of Brian Fury. Yeah, that's where my roots are. That's what I always tell myself. Like, I learned Tekken with Brian when I was young, and the character has a lot of like personal meaning and history for me. And he might not be my best character anymore, not the best option for me to pick in tournament, but I still, you know, I have Brian in my heart, the Fury.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a wonderful story. I wanted to ask you why you switched to Jack.
So I mean, honestly, I've been playing Jack competitively like longer than I've been playing Brian. I started playing Jack in tournaments in like late 2005, 2006. Probably 2006. I started picking up Jack 5, and So my run as a competitive Brian player wasn't too long. I've been playing Jack forever. I don't know what it was. When I was young, I had a ton of time. Being in like middle school, early high school, I just sit in practice mode and learn tons of characters. And back in Tekken 5, I really just like fell in love with the character, with Jack. I've told this story a few times. I'm kind of like a move list name connoisseur. Like in Tekken, they name every single move. I think that's so cool. And in Tekken 5, I found this move with Jack. It's called Dump Truck.
So what?
It's called Dump Truck.
Oh, okay.
And I just thought it was like so funny. It's his shoulder. He just leans into you. And when I was young, I thought it was so sick. And so that was like the beginning of playing Jack for me. And I started searching for top Jack players. Found this guy named Arario. He's like a West Coast legend in Tekken, and he inspired me like to play the character.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so Jack ever since, and now this iteration of Jack in 7. Is this your favorite iteration of Jack?
I would say it is, actually. I mean, I really liked Jack 5. His aesthetic. In Tekken 5, he's like always screaming. We have these like jokes in Buffalo. Like every move that Jack does in Tekken 5, he's just like yelling for some reason. They kind of tone that down. But I think this is the strongest version of Jack that there's ever been. So, for that reason, it feels really good to play the character as a Jack main. So yeah, he's my favorite.
So let's talk about the game itself, Tekken 7. How much do you like the game? What do you like about it? And are there things that you would like to see maybe change?
As far as having fun playing Tekken, this has been the best one for me. Like, this game is so awesome. I've gotten to travel around the world for it, so I'm really enjoying it. I love the slow motion feature that they added to this game. I do like a lot of the comeback mechanics, the combo system. It all feels great. Every once in a while I get the sense that the rage mode is too strong in this game, but at the same time, we've pretty much been able to say that about the rage mode in every Tekken that it's been in. In Tekken 6 and Tag 2, rage mode was just crazy. So clearly the developers want it that way. It's hard. Many times, like having a huge life lead and it just getting melted away in an instant. Like the comeback mechanic is very intentionally kind of driven into the game. Maybe that's just a good thing, like for the spectator aspect. As a player, it can get frustrating. So maybe they could tone it down a little bit, but that's pretty much my only problem with the game. Everything else, I really enjoy about it. It's really balanced, super fun, so I love it.
And how about the balance patch? Do you think that was handled well, and it introduced the wall bounce as well?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the balance patch. I wish they hadn't given Geese Howard that wall bounce. I don't know if like anyone will know what I'm talking about. His max mode, he can wall bounce from like super far away now. It's a huge buff, and it drives me crazy. But overall, they did a great job with it. The thing that I really like is they put out these patch notes for the balance patch, and it's like this window to the mind of the developers. You can see the way that they think about balance, the way they think about what's good with each character. It like totally changed my outlook on the game. So even just for that reason, I love the balance patch. But I think just about everything they did is quite good.
That's awesome. So Tekken World Tour is coming up, right? You are, I think, the second highest placed American. So congratulations on that. That's coming up soon, beginning of December, I think, in Amsterdam. How do you think about going into a tournament like that? You know who's going to be there, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, just about every competitor except for one. There's going to be a last chance qualifier that's going to enter the bracket the day before we play. Yeah, it's definitely a different dynamic going into a qualified tournament like that. Going into an open bracket tournament, you're like, I have no idea who I'm going to play, what's going to happen. This one, everyone, but at the same time, there's no easy fights at all. So you can like pick, I should prepare for this guy, they're the strongest, but regardless, anyone you play, it's going to be such a challenge. So You have to try to scout just about everybody and go in at your absolute best. I don't really know what to say. It's like the hardest tournament you could possibly attempt to win. So you just have to go and enjoy that challenge, I think.
Yeah, enjoyment I think is the key there actually. Not that I'm an expert or anything. I just I like to hear it when people say that, because I was going to ask you if it was stressing you out, but I think if you can take that, if you can enjoy it, enjoy the moment, then you know. So when I look through the rankings, it pretty much looks like it's Korea, maybe some Japanese, mainly Korea, and then you got some North American sprinkled in, and like obviously Korea is dominant. They have arcades. The scene is a bit different. What do you think? Do you think the gap? What do you think the gap is currently? Where do you think North America is right now? And what do you think North America needs to do to potentially be the best?
Honestly, the gap is pretty big. You can see it in the results. When I get opportunities to play against the top Americans and the top Koreans, you can feel the difficulty rise. As far as catching up, it's maybe unrealistic. Like honestly, what we'd have to do is just gather like all the best players in North America, and you'd all have to just move into a house together and just grind. And honestly, if you did that, I think the gap would close. We've got some really, really talented people in the States, but it's just, a lot of people know this. The United States is just too big, and you can't get quality matches with each other like you can in a condensed area like Korea, where they're just grinding so hard. They have a very hard work ethic, the way that they lab the game and prepare together. Those things all need to be like generated in the United States, and that happens by having a super close, tight-knit community. So we would have to generate that somehow, and it's, moving across the country to play Tekken isn't the most realistic thing right now. Right. But we can explore other methods and try to beat them, and it's fun. So.
Well, it's not like they're unbeatable. You've proven that, and that's an awesome thing. Talking of unbeatable, is there anybody out there at the moment? You just talked about Jimmy Tran. Is Jimmy Tran your demon? Do you have anyone who you feel like this is my demon?
Yeah, Jimmy's becoming one of them, definitely. I just can't quite get him. Yeah, it's always been like Jimmy and Anakin. There are a lot of players that I lose to, but I run into them again and I beat them, and like at worst it's back and forth. But with those two, I've never quite gotten them. I've now beaten Jimmy and Anakin in sets to send them to losers, and then both times they came back and they beat me in the grand finals. They're slippery fish, Can't quite kill them.
Yeah, well, you never know. It may happen. You got very, very, very close this weekend. Very close indeed. So, talking of players, this is one of my favorite questions. Actually, is do you have a favorite player, or do you have a favorite player growing up, or somebody who inspired you? You mentioned somebody actually.
So yeah, when I was much younger, like Tekken 5, I really looked up to this guy Arario. He was a SoCal player, and later on, it was Anakin for me, as somebody to look to. I saw the way he played, and he's such a unique player. The presence of his mind game, it's completely oppressive, and I was like, I want to be that type of player. I want to just my presence on the screen with Jack. I just want to terrify people and smother them with my mix-ups, and he really does that. And I've learned a lot, kind of using him as an idol and a mentor. And of course, I have my own style. That's really important at the same time. You can't just mindlessly try to emulate, because you'll never truly emulate someone else. You're always going to be you. So, yeah, Anakin, Arario, Jack players.
Fair enough. So, when you do you feel like you're a field-based player or a science-based player? Because I hear this a lot in Tekken, this split between field-based players and maybe a newer generation of tech-based players. Do you feel like you're one or the other, or somewhere in between?
I think for a very, very long time, I've always been that solid information tech-based player. And recently, I've been like transitioning to this feel-based, like you don't need to know the frames, you need to know the feel, like so that you can maybe be at a super disadvantaged frame and mash out of it. So I'm trying to manage that transition right now, but I think it's super important to just be dynamic, and you need to be pretty much a master of both.
Okay.
So yeah, every once in a while I catch myself feeling it wrong. You know, like I'll mash out of something and it's a super bad decision. Jimmy blew me up for that a few times. But it's important to try to cross that bridge every once in a while so that you're not all just numbers. And interestingly, I feel like that's kind of how Jimmy beat me yesterday. He's very technical, very numbers based all throughout the set. And then when it came down to the wire at the end, it was just like, I'm going to hack you with lows, and I don't care what you're going to do to stop me. It was like a total instinctual victory. Like he's, went all in, put his chips all in on one move. Yeah, got to be dynamic, I guess.
Well, we live and learn. When it comes to training, like, what does your training look like nowadays? Maybe it's different from how it used to be, I don't know. Do you have a set training schedule? What types of things do you do? And the reason I ask for a little bit of detail is usually just because these people out here watching and wondering how they can be, what they can do to get better, or what it takes.
Yeah, so my training was a lot more extensive and intensive probably several months ago, earlier. Unfortunately, like leading up to this tournament, the past few tournaments, I haven't been able to train the way I want to. I'm in school right now, studying engineering. I've got a lot of responsibilities like that. So a lot of the training has to be mental. You're just running scenarios in your head, trying to run matchups. I came here early Thursday, tried to get as many games as possible. Sometimes that's involved. It's like last minute training. You get here, you find your boys, and you just try to grind. So me getting to this point, it was really intense training throughout the years. I'm hoping when school calms down a bit more that I'll be able to play more with my training partners. That's magnificent. And it's got to be a lot of online. So that's unfortunate, I guess, for some people. But that's the way we have to train. You have to hook up with the top players that live close to you and just grind it out.
So a lot of grinding online.
Yeah.
How about the actual, do you do lab work? Do you watch videos? Do you watch your own replays? Do you do any of that stuff? Or is it literally like, just keep grinding?
That stuff is all super important, and you need to be connecting the dots when you do like one of those things to the other. Like tons and tons of lab time. You can see it in a player like Jimmy. He's labbed everything, but then not only has he labbed it, he's gone and played those matchups against his training partners, hundreds, thousands of times. He's always connecting the lab work to the actual matches. And then, so after you play those matches in tournament, of course you got to go watch the footage back, figure out what you learned, and it's kind of like a big loop. 3 points, the lab work, running the matchups with your training partners, and then running those matchups in tournament, watching the footage, and then taking it back to the lab, and so you hopefully master that matchup. Yeah.
Right. So it's a lot of work, people. If you don't think it's work, it's work. What type of engineering are you studying, by the way?
I am studying electrical engineering my 3rd year at the University of Buffalo.
Okay. So what's the plan? Are you taking fighting games seriously in the context of, I hope I can do this full time after university, or are you thinking this is always just going to be a side thing?
I've been pretty all in on the fighting games, traveling as much as I possibly can, and getting sponsored with EQNX. I definitely would love to have a future in it. The thing about me is I have a tendency to get interested in many, many different things. So like engineering, I do music, I do Tekken. I'll get like sidetracked, and I'll put a ton of time into this, So I think that's just the type of person I am. I have many interests. So for me, it's just like a constant strive to do all of these things that I want to do. And it just makes me happy to have many interests.
What sort of music?
So actually, I studied saxophone for a long time. I also play, bass guitar and sing and do like the rock band thing. And I recently was like playing bass guitar in a pit in like a musical, musical. And so I do stuff like that. And any kind of music, I love playing gigs and performing. It's a big part of my life.
That's awesome, man. All right, I want to talk about competing and pressure. Since you started so young, do you still feel pressure and nerves? And if you do, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, I do. I think everyone does. No matter how long you've been doing it, you're going to feel that pressure. I think, for me at least, it's a good thing. If you feel pressure, that means, you care and you want to win, and your body's creating some energy going into this. Of course, you want to control it. But I guess the way that I try to think about it, it's like, all right, if I'm feeling pressure, if I'm feeling nerves, then I know my opponent is as well. Like, this is part of the ring that we're going into. Like, we're going into this environment where we're going to fight, and it's like a common denominator that there is pressure. And so you can either just get swallowed up by it and choke, or you can use it as a tool against your opponent to make them crack. The pressure is like a tool at your disposal. That's the way I try to think about it. And of course, easier said than done. It doesn't always work. Sometimes the pressure gets to you and you crack. But that's the game we're playing. I think people who try to not feel any pressure or eliminate it, I think that's like. It's like you're not playing the game. Like this, it's part of what we're doing. Is this pressure? If you're trying to eliminate it, I think you're doing something wrong. You have to use it as a weapon.
Wow, that's a wonderful answer. I've never heard anyone say it like that. But you have to kind of accept that it's there and work with it, and maybe even, as you say, use it to your advantage. Recognize and be aware that your opponent feels it too.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Did want to ask you about the season 2. Right. What was your reaction to? Oh, I guess the biggest thing to talk about is Neegan.
Oh yeah. I forgot about him actually.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna talk about Lei and Anna. I have no idea what to expect. I mean, I know a little bit about Walking Dead. I never read the comics, but I followed the show a little bit. I don't really watch it much anymore. Super violent show. I talked to a lot of my friends, and they're like, doesn't he belong in Mortal Kombat or something like that?
Yeah, because there's one particular scene
Right.
where he bashes people's heads in with a baseball bat.
Right. So it seems like he would fit better in that sort of environment. Of course, the comic series is really violent too. So I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, how's he gonna fit in? What's his rage art gonna be like? How's he gonna play? And then I thought about it, the more violent stuff in Tekken, they kind of do it as the style of art. They call it camp. It's kind of campy, like Anna shooting someone with a rocket launcher, and they just blow up, and then they get up. And so I'm wondering, I think Negan's probably going to be a bit like that. It's going to be sort of like this comic book violence, campy. He's going to smack you with the bat, and you're going to go flying across the room. I don't know. This is what I'm imagining if they're going to incorporate him. Who knows? It's all speculation. I think maybe we'll see something about him at Globals, like a Neegan trailer.
Yeah.
So it's all up in the air.
Wow, that'd be so dope. That's only next month. That'd be amazing if they do, because I thought he was going to be the last character.
Oh, maybe. That might be true. Maybe they're doing the legacy characters first.
Yeah.
I'm not too familiar, but.
Talking of legacy characters, any that you want to see come back?
Yeah. So I haven't really mentioned. We talk about me as a Jack player. I've started playing Jack in Tekken 5, but more so my main. I kind of use these characters in tandem together, but it was Jack and Marduk. Marduk is a huge character for me, kind of like my main. In Tag 2, my team was Jack Marduk, so I really want him back. That would be huge for me. It would kind of make me feel complete as a player, as long as they did a good job incorporating him into the system, of course. Yeah, I definitely want Marduk back.
Okay. Solid. All you've talked about is Tekken, right? You're playing Tekken from such an early age. I trying to understand why or if other games existed to you. other fighting games? Do you play other fighting games? Are you aware of other fighting games? Do you play other games? Like,
I mean, I played a lot of video games growing up. Tekken has been unique. It's a game that it demands a lot out of you, a lot of commitments, emotionally and mentally. But yeah, growing up, I played other games. I really loved like the Final Fantasy series. I played like RPGs. I did play quite a lot of Street Fighter 4, actually. I played like a ton of Boxer, and I played online. I got involved in my community, and yeah, I was decent at it. I think the best I ever did, I placed like top 4 or something like that in like an 80-man tournament. Wow. That was like, it was kind of like a local level tournament, but it was a big deal for me. You know, I was learning the game. I never really played Street Fighter 5. Haven't tried it. It didn't catch my interest the way Street Fighter 4 did. Yeah. I really liked that game. And I also played quite a lot of Smash Brothers growing up.
Oh, you did?
All of them. Yes, 64, Melee, Brawl, Project M. You know, I like those games. So I guess the new Smash is coming out very soon. I'll probably try it out. Gaming's been a big part of my life, but yeah, Tekken is special, of course.
Have you ever thought about taking any of those other games seriously?
Yeah, I have. I've thought about getting like back into Street Fighter, but you know, like I said, it just hasn't motivated me the same way as Street Fighter 4 did. Maybe this new Smash game will get me motivated that way. I talked to some Tekken players, and they're kind of like, you got to put everything into Tekken because it demands so much. But then other people's philosophy is that you can really improve a lot by playing other games and understanding new methods of decision making, kind of expand your brain. So I've thought about that. You know, maybe it's a good reason to get into some other games.
Let me ask you this one last question. It's a big one because it's quite philosophical. But do you have a quote or mantra that you sort of live by, or maybe something, or it doesn't have to be a specific quote, a sort of way that you look at life? Maybe sometimes when you're down and you want to, you know, get yourself out of a funk or whatever. Just I'm always interested in how people think about life, particularly fighting game players, because they're doing something which is not normal.
It's quite abnormal, and yeah, I think a big part of being a fighting game player, there's not like some like fighting game philosopher you can look to for inspiration, or like it's hard to find mentors, like people that like know this path really well. There's not like a ton of resources, so you really have to kind of find your own path, and you look to other areas to draw inspiration and connect them to Tekken. So as far as like a specific quote, I tell people all the time, like there's a book by this guy named Timothy Galloway called The Inner Game of Tennis, and it's all about the mental aspect of being a tennis player. I talk to people about this book quite a lot, and you know, I've read it. I try to connect it to Tekken. I don't know if there's like a specific quote from it that I could think of, but maybe just like one, for instance, it's a Kierkegaard quote, and I don't know if I'll get it exactly right, but it's like, life can only be understood backwards, but it has to be lived forwards. And that was kind of like a big one for me in trying to think about decision making in Tekken, actually. And that you're only really going to be able to understand everything that happened in the match when you go back and you're retroactively like looking and analyzing and understanding everything. But it reinforced this idea in me of like no looking back in the moment, just go, like always moving forward. The match will never stop. It's completely unrelenting. Yeah, that quote had like a lot of meaning in fighting games for me for that reason.
That's very nice indeed. All right, cool. So I think we're going to round it out. Really good luck in the Tekken World Finals. Yeah. You know, really, I'm going to be watching, cheering for you. And thank you so much for the interview. Yeah. This pretty much well, no problem at all. This pretty much rounds out the whole thing for me. It's going to end very soon. I want to watch the end of the North American Finals. So we're just going to say goodbye to these guys. See you guys.
Cheers, guys.